Hey Danny, how you doing, man?
You never had the makings of a varsity athlete.
That flawless. It's
Yeah.
That's actually one of my notes, but I'm sure we'll get to that in great length with Danny's flawless accent. Will be coming through.
Flawless. But Lewis, hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. I can see your face. I can definitely
Yeah.
see your face. This isn't.
You can see my face. A microphone is covering the bottom bit.
Yep.
So you can't quite see. Oh no. Okay, there we go. My bottom lip is resting on top of the microphone for truly terrible sound quality.
Lovely.
Is that good?
Yeah, that is very good.
Lovely stuff.
Yes.
We'll be able to see which one of us has which type of microphone, because my face is pressed up against it, so I've got decent sound.
Yep.
And I'll be able to see what you do when you're talking into your microphone.
Yep. I sort of moved back a little bit because mine's is quite loud for some reason. I've no idea why. But
presumably it's some kind of Scottish witchcraft.
it was made by
I can only presume.
Old man John down the road.
Yep.
Who lives in the bush. I don't know much about Scottish folklore.
Neither do I. We have a book on our bookshelf downstairs called Scottish Myths and Legends. I keep meaning to read it so I can tantalise you and be like, "Oh, Danny, what about?" And then like a Scottish elf or something that,
Yeah.
that neither of us have ever heard of before.
We could do it. We could do that for the bullshit at some point.
We could do, yeah.
Yeah.
Say, Danny, have you ever seen and then look through the book.
Have you ever seen
a wood nymph?
a Sassenach? Yeah, but here we are, folks, at the 90th episode of the podcast. Yeah, you can see our faces. Sadly.
You can. My screen has gone very bright somehow. Because I think the sun has just come out.
Yeah.
So all the light pouring through the windows is just like... I'm just like... in this. It's like I'm dead. And you're looking at me in heaven. That's what it's like.
I'm sort of switching gears between looking at the camera and looking at the mountains of insults I'm getting lauded in the Discord. Isn't Danny the Scottish elf? Fuck's sake, Darius! Whatever. Yes, I am. I am indeed.
I'm a hobbit, so I suppose does that kind of do elves and hobbits like each other in Lord of the Rings?
I mean, elves are sort of immortal, really good-looking, superior dicks, and
Right.
hobbits just want to chill out, farm, smoke weed, and eat. Really.
I mean, I don't smoke, but the rest of it's pretty
Yeah,
accurate.
they're
Chill out, eat,
Pretty chilled out.
pretty spot on. Hairy feet,
Yeah, hairy feet.
small.
Yep.
It's one of the strangest things that anyone's ever said to me. It was I think it was Simon Lowe, friend of the show.
Salmon loaf from the show.
And he said they're filming a Lord of the Rings TV series in New Zealand, and he looked me up and down
It's
and
in
said,
Scotland,
and you,
bud.
you look a bit. It's in Scotland.
It's in
Well,
Scotland.
he said this many years ago, but he said, yeah, they're filming this Lord of the Rings TV series. They are filming it wherever, and the casting director is such and such. I have to get in touch with your agency if they've got a couple of roles.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm mentioning it to you because, well, you look a bit like a hobbit. You're like small and pale and have dark hair, so you kind of fit the hobbit sort of thing. And I was like, I mean, I kind of get it, Simon. I do kind of get it, because I kind of do. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Simon, I guess.
He was doing his level best to further your career.
He was.
Yeah. I know what you're all thinking. Where's the wheel of bullshit? It's
Yes! I can't see it. I'll have to watch the video to see it.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Hey! There it is! But
Hey.
sat behind me. Lewis, you can see that, right?
Yeah, I can see it perfectly, because we are also on a Skype call.
Yeah, defo.
Yeah, I've secretly Skyped you.
That's probably a good idea. We should probably do that.
It probably would be a good idea. It'd probably be way easier to do that.
I can't see anything he's fucking doing. But let's spin it and get into the bullshit. Oh, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous.
I mean, I can't listen to the sound because Discord hates it, but in theory, I know it's utterly wonderful. So that's nice.
It's beautiful. Lewis, would you like to tell us the first piece of bullshit, please?
I would. Dan, guess who's back?
Who?
He's back again.
Who?
Shady's back. Tell a friend. Russell T Davies is back from the ether. he did Doctor Who, and then he was like, all right, that's enough for now.
Yep.
David Tennant's going, so am I.
Yep.
And then he busted down the doors with what was it, Years and Years, critically lauded, absolutely stupendous.
Yep.
It's a Sin, critically lauded, absolutely stupendous. And now he's coming back to Doctor Who. He's doing some more Doctor Who. Don't know if you know this, Dan, but I quite like Doctor Who.
I also know that I like Doctor Who as well.
What?
Yeah, I mean we should probably talk about that at some point.
We should maybe make several series of a podcast
Yeah.
in which we talk at great length about Doctor Who.
Maybe. Yeah, I am so excited. I cannot even begin to tell you how excited I am. Because if anyone knows me, knows that I love political shit in the media that I watch. And
He does. This is true.
Russell T Davies he's getting quite political with the the content. Not that he didn't have that before. I mean, there were definitely themes in it of Doctor Who, and it was subtle, and you could definitely sort of appreciate that side of it. But yeah, look, years and years, It's a Sin, just very sort of issue based, and I love that shit. I used to hate it,
Yeah.
but now I love it. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I enjoy. I mean, I enjoy Russell T Davies's writing. I enjoy a lot of his work. I'm sure it'll be good.
It will.
It's strange because I've sort of gone past the point of caring now in a strange way,
Yeah.
because we've spent so much time going, but it doesn't matter who the showrunner is, it doesn't matter who the new Doctor is, or it doesn't matter who this is, it doesn't matter who that is, because the
Yeah.
writing's terrible. So now I know the writing's going to be good. I'm like, well, when do I start caring who the next Doctor is? When do I
Yeah.
start caring about all these other things? In a way, it's a bit of a shame on two fronts, because first of all, this is going to massively overshadow Jodie Whittaker's final season.
It certainly is.
Which is an utter tragedy, because she is a stupendous actor, and I really do enjoy watching her perform.
She very much is. Yeah.
And I think I'm going to really enjoy this next series, regardless of what happens in the rest of in the series afterwards that Russell T Davies is doing,
Yeah.
and in the series where I drop my pen on my desk, apparently. But yeah, it's also, I can't remember why else it's a shame. It's a shame for some reason.
Well, I mean,
Oh yes, that's it. It's a shame because I don't know. I would have liked to have seen Jodie Whittaker perform something that Russell T Davies has written.
yes.
I would have quite liked to have watched that and to have seen what the kind of thing that he would write for her and stuff like that. I'm interested to see who the next Doctor's going to be. I'm interested to see what Russell T Davies is going to do. In a way, I'm looking forward to Doctor Who having not an overarching plot, but an overarching theme.
Yeah.
That's something that I think we lost when we left the RTD era. And we sort of went from having overarching themes that the Doctor is such and such or whatever, and then we went to the silence. They're there.
Yeah.
Oh, the Doctor's gonna die. Oh, this. Oh, this, and it's okay. Yeah, great, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to going back to having sort of more standalone type stuff in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they essentially went from the Doctor sort of dealing with like trauma to the Doctor being the most important man in the universe at any given point.
Yeah,
You know?
which is a bit shit.
Yeah, a little bit. What I am worried about is that it's shit.
Yes, I am slightly concerned that it could be shit,
Because
which is always a concern, really.
you know, if you've been given some ice cream every day for 2 years,
Right.
and the ice cream tastes of feet and soggy watermelon, then you're not gonna be like, oh,
Isn't all watermelon soggy?
fine, dry, bone dry watermelon. And if
Watermelon that's like cotton wool. Yep.
yeah, and if you're expecting that, and you suddenly hear about the ice cream van changing hands, like you're probably still gonna be like, wow, it's probably not gonna be that great. But you know, you've got hope. You've got hope. So that's my analogy for that.
So you're saying you have hope, but you don't have much serious belief that it will improve or get worse. It might just be the same.
Yeah, it's a sort of infusion of hope and despair. Yeah.
Of hope and despair.
Yeah.
Wow, what an
Yeah.
infusion! It's like going into a cocktail bar and ordering a cocktail with an infusion of hope and despair, please. I'd like a martini with some hope and despair, please.
Absolutely.
To be fair, I think that's probably what a martini tastes like.
Probably. I mean, I've never had one, so I wouldn't know. It does give off vibes that the BBC doesn't have confidence in Doctor Who. It does a little bit, yeah. I mean, it's like sort of, yeah, we've given it to 2 other people. They've fucked it up. Russell, get back here. Get in there.
They have faith in Russell T Davies, but no one else.
Yeah, which is... I mean, some of the greatest
worrying.
episodes of the show are like fan written and stuff like that. I didn't know this, but the Family of Blood episodes that we'll be reviewing in the coming weeks, that was like made by like a fan. Like it was like written before Doctor Who came back, and then it was adapted. Yeah, I mean that's like pretty as a book. Yeah, it was a book.
Oh wow!
And it was
that's pretty cool as well. Yeah,
adapted to the screen.
Very nice. Well, cool.
Yeah.
What was I going to say then? We should say, by the way, just very quickly, in case you didn't listen to the whisper, we have some of our patrons in the chat now. So that's why we suddenly will be silent and then read something out loud, and you can very obviously tell that we aren't actually thinking of what to say.
Yes.
Somebody else has said it, and we're just reading it.
And if you would like to join their esteemed rank, click on the Patreon bit, or wherever it is, and
click on the
join
Patreon
them.
bit. Stunning.
Yeah,
Go to patreon.com/shoutingintothevoid, and that's where we are.
Yeah. You can buy the book from most online bookstores.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Darius.
Mm-hmm. Darius knows. Darius is
in there.
A fantastic hookup with the obscure Doctor Who novels.
Absolutely.
Good on you, Darius.
So, I think that's it for this bit of bullshit. You've got another bit, don't you, Lewis?
I do. I've got a cheeky bit of bullshit myself. I've been sitting on it, but that's sort of terrible.
Yeah,
terrible and not at all funny.
Yeah. I'm going to spin the wheel again.
Okay, you're going to need to tell me when it stopped, because I definitely can't hear it.
Okay. Still spinning. Still spinning. Still spinning. Still spinning.
Okay.
It stopped!
Whoa! James Bond! The Daniel Craig quote, and what actors do we like for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you will be aware of this. If you're a person in the world, I'm a person in the world who doesn't watch James Bond movies as a general rule of thumb. But even I am aware of the fact that Daniel Craig is now leaving James Bond. He's been James Bond since 2007. I don't know. Maybe. He's been James Bond for absolutely ages. But yeah, now he's leaving, and there was this very emotional speech going around on, I think it was on Twitter, I saw it, where he's sort of talking to all the cast and crew of, I want to say this most recent film is called No Time to Die.
That's right.
No Time to Die, is that right? Yeah,
and
he's talking to the cast and crew of that and being like, oh, you've been with me for 5 movies, and it's been really good, and all the rest of it, and it's a very heartfelt speech, and it's very, very lovely. But yes, 2 interesting things happen. Well, one interesting thing happens every time there's a new James Bond, and another interesting thing has happened with this James Bond. So, Daniel Craig has said, let me get the actual quote, otherwise I will just be slandering him massively.
Good show. Libel.
Libel. Let's cut this bit out. Here we go. The actor says instead, Daniel Craig says, the role should not be given to a woman, James Bond this is. There should simply be better parts for women and actors of colour. What do we think about that?
That's an interesting quote. I agree and I disagree. Okay, so
go on.
I think the role of 007 should be given to anyone that wants it, but the role of like James Bond should be a male role, and I think that he is absolutely correct that there should definitely be better parts for women and people of colour. Like, there is absolutely no doubt about that. I just think sort of... I mean, it's not entirely my place to say so, because like, I'm male, so I couldn't really understand. But like, if looking at it from the perspective, if I was a woman, I don't know if I would really want like to sort of do an already established character, but with like female characteristics, if you get me. I would be like, no, I'm just going to make my own thing, and it's going to be so much better, you know? But also, I recognise that people that say that also say that in like a sort of sly sexist way, so because they just don't want women in their spaces. So I just want to like put that out there. But I think it's a mixture of both for me. I'm not entirely sure. If it's principally, if it's done well, I don't really care, you know. But if it's just because I don't, it's a difficult. If it's done well, yeah, anything goes for me. If it's done well, that's all I care
Yeah,
about.
I feel mostly the same as you. I think I don't really care. I think that if the role goes to a man or a woman or anybody else, that's it's completely fine. I think make a good movie first and worry about who you cast in it second, if that makes sense. If you just make a good movie, the acting and the directing and the writing will speak for itself, regardless of who is doing those things.
I mean, it's a strange sort of thing to say. Like, I don't think the role should. What was the actual quote? I don't want to misquote him.
The actor who plays James Bond says the role should not be given to a woman. There should simply be better parts for women and actors of colour.
So how is that enforced then? Like,
what do you mean?
How is that enforced? Like, does he want that by law, or does
Oh right, okay.
I mean, if someone wants to make a film about, I don't know, Jane Bond, then yeah, that's fine. I don't. You're allowed to not like it, but the idea that it should be does it mean that it should be banned, or should everyone just collectively agree that a woman should never be given that role? I'm not entirely sure, but if it's done well, I'm not entirely. I don't really care, to be honest. You know.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Although
I think this does go on.
Sorry, if there's just if there's a different way to do it that hasn't been sort of oh, excuse me. If there's a different way to do it that hasn't been explored, and it comes across really well and is done really well, I don't see what the problem is. You know.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, they've made about 1 million James Bond films, so at this point, just keep making them, keep being creative, and see what's good. Do you know what I mean? People will see anything that is a James Bond film, even if it's sort of very distantly related to the universe or whatever. So just keep making the films. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I think the point that I was just about to make, that this sort of brushes up against an issue that I've seen talked about before. I forget completely who said it now. But it's one of the great pet peeves of my life is when people talk about sort of a strong female character, but then what they mean is a character that was written for a man, but then they just changed the name and changed the gender. That's sort of annoying, because it doesn't... It's frustrating that the phrase strong female character has to be related to a woman showing sort of traditionally sort of... What's the word I'm looking for? Stereotypically male characteristics. I think, can't we just have characters that carry the narrative, and that's a strong character, regardless of a lot of other things and a lot of other sort of questions about what they're like and what they're like as a person and what the choices they might make in a moral situation. And I think that's what it sort of brushes up against here, is the idea that that's why I understand what Daniel Craig says a bit more, is there should just be better roles for everybody.
Yeah.
Because there are so many stories to be told out there. Why not just tell them all? Everybody's going to always want to watch films. Everybody's always going to want to watch TV and listen to the radio and listen to music and stuff. So having these places be a diverse space for lots of different creators and lots of different performers, that only benefits everybody.
Yep.
So in my mind, it's something that I loathe the contentiousness of it. I really don't like the idea that this is a contentious belief that we should just have everybody be represented in media, because of course we should. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, there's also the point to be made that if it's if there is a female James Bond, they are just going to be sort of unfairly compared to their male counterparts, which isn't ideal either. But yeah, like you said, it's just if there's a different, unique way or a different, unique take on a story, and it works and it's entertaining and it's it means something, then why the fuck not?
Yeah, and plus trying to find a different, unique take on a story as old as James Bond, that's good, full stop. Do you know what I mean? It, regardless of how you get to it being a different, unique take, it's good to have a different, unique take.
Absolutely. God, putting the worlds to right, eh?
I know, already. We're nailing it.
Absolutely. I think we might be out of bullshit.
I think we are indeed out of bullshit.
Yes.
Go on, let's talk a little bit about whatever it is, the small mini thing that we've picked out to do on 90th episode.
Yeah. So we're talking about The Sopranos. It's a big dramatic thing there.
Yeah.
Lewis is. I've been telling Lewis to watch this for ages, and then he finally agreed that we were going to do this for the podcast. So he had to watch it, and he couldn't just keep ignoring me giving him TV show recommendations. So yeah, we're talking about the fucking Sopranos, and it was created by David Chase, and is starring James Gandolfini, Lorraine Bracco, Edie Falco, Michael Imperioli, Stephen Van Zandt, and Tony Sirico.
Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
Starring Tony.
Tony Sirico. He's got 3 last names, all the same.
Tony
Yeah.
Sirico. Yes.
That's obviously not who's just in it. This is a massive show with an insane number of characters. But those are the sort of regulars. So Lewis, do you have an opening statement?
I do have an opening statement. I don't like mafia stuff very much.
Yeah.
However, I did enjoy this very much. It has a number of characteristics that do make it different to your average sort of Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro doing something together. There are a number of things that make it different to that.
Yeah.
And I really do quite enjoy this show. And it's something that I will be quoting probably until the day I die.
Absolutely.
It is a very, very good show, very, very well written. And the characters all have a good amount of screen presence, which is just something that just popped into my head. But it's something that really defines the show, I think, is all the characters having a well-defined aura, as it were, on stage. And that's quite a nice thing to see. So do you have an opening statement?
I do indeed. An incredible show that makes us look at the romanticization of the American mafia and how bad socialization and repugnancy can make one irredeemable.
There we go.
I got that wrong the first time. Yeah, so to creepy room questions. Okay, easy stuff out of the way first. Favourite character and why?
I have a bit of a soft spot for Paulie in a bit of a strange way.
Oh, wow.
Just not in a. I don't favour Paulie out of the rest of them. Christ knows they're all terrible people.
Yeah.
But Paulie is somebody that I enjoy watching on screen. I enjoy watching him do things. Yeah, that, and also the one thing that really sort of got me about him was when Tony came clean to. Oh Christ! I've forgotten all of their names now because as I was watching the show, I just reduced them to that one from Family Guy, the young one, and the one with the dark hair. He had that inner circle, didn't he? Silvio, Paulie, and Christopher.
Yes.
I've got the IMDb page up as well. So yeah, the young one, the one with dark hair, and the one from Family Guy.
Yes.
So yeah, I sort of knew him briefly as the one from Family Guy as I was watching the show, but the one that really sort of got me for him was when they were sat in the office at the strip club that Tony owns, and Tony sort of comes clean and says, "I went to therapy, I talked to a psychiatrist, and all the rest of it," and Paulie sort of turns around and goes, "Yeah, I went to therapy too." And then it's just never addressed again. Outside of that scene, nobody ever mentions it ever again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I like how he sort of throws away these obscure bits of character detail. It makes for a very engaging character, even though he's a terrible, terrible person.
I do like how Paulie is like a misophobe. Like in that scene where he's talking about like germs. It's like, even when you're walking in the bathroom and you got your shoelaces dragging through the piss and shit, and Silvio's just sitting there going, "Oh, shut the fuck up!" He's just trying. I find that, like, even though it's like a horrible gangster show about really horrible people, it is really funny at points. It's got such a weird sense of humour.
That's one of my notes, is that it's funny.
Yeah.
That's why I actually quite enjoyed it, is because I find it hard to watch a Martin Scorsese gangster film or The Godfather or something, and I'm just sat there for like 3 hours getting depressed, and then after 3 hours of getting depressed, I'm just sat on the sofa going, "Oh my god, this is really depressing."
Yeah, definitely.
But that's having Silvio and Paulie have the sort of comedic relief in a strange way. That was really quite charming, and it
Yeah.
really made the show a lot more watchable. And having what's his face, the cook? Oh Jesus,
Who? The cook?
oh, he's bold. He's a cook. He has the restaurant. The
Oh,
restaurant burns down in the first season.
Archie.
Archie, yeah.
Yeah.
He's sort of got a comedic character as well in his ways, and they're all.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to laugh at them all, and that's quite a redeeming sort of bit of the show, I think.
Very much so. My favourite character is by far. He's only in it for one episode.
Right.
And it's a doctor.
So what are the chances I forgot him in my insane sprint through the show?
It's a Dr. Krakoa, who's Carmela's
Right.
therapist.
Okay.
Um,
Carmela, therapist, The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Dr. Krakoa.
Do you know him?
Yep. I do not recognise him. I'm sure
Oh.
I recognise his voice, but I vaguely maybe recognise him.
Yeah, well, Carmela goes to this therapist to talk
Hmm.
about sort of like Tony's behaviour and stuff, and
Yes.
he is like in comparison with Dr. Melfi, who's Tony's therapist, he is so like hard cutting and like honest about what's like going on with their family. Carmela's like, he's a good man, he's a good husband, a good father, and he's just sat there like, you've told me he's a depressed criminal. He's just so honest. And I think he's one of the few people that say the word mafia.
Okay.
And Carmela just like breaks down in like tears, and she's like, "Oh Jesus!" It's like, it's so interesting how like none of the characters ever say the word mafia. It's always this thing of ours, the business. You know, it's
that's a really good point
it's-
that I had just not even noticed.
yeah, it's almost like it's like taboo to even say the word mafia. You know, it's so interesting, and he just gives her like a complete dose of reality. Carmela then says something about him being Jewish and says something really anti-Semitic, and he's just like, well, regardless of what you do from here on out, you've been told that you need to leave, and if you choose not to, that's on you. And it's like it's a really interesting scene. Just when you're starting to look like Tony's crew and stuff, you're just reminded about who these people actually are, you know. And it's sort of that sort of dynamic of comedy and you know, remembering that they're all, you know, very, very bad people.
Yeah. That's the thing it does quite well is what I'm trying to say now. Breaking Bad did it in a way by having brutal murders and stuff, and then hard cut to Walter White holding a baby, and you go, oh, that was really intense and weird that he's a good person underneath it all, and he's caring for this child and whatever.
Yeah.
But The Sopranos does it by these people are unabashedly terrible people. They all sort of know they're terrible people and murderers and all these horrible torture things they do, but they kind of don't care, and that in a way is supposed to sort of redeem them to you in a strange way. Is that sort of because they don't care, you're sort of expected to just be like, oh, okay, well, I suppose it's all right then. I suppose it's all right that they do those things.
Yeah, definitely. The Sopranos sort of definitely led the way in the sort of vein of what we're willing to let characters do before we no longer root for them. I'd like to just talk a little bit about Tony's character arc because it's so good. So in the early seasons, it's difficult to not sympathise with him. Because he's funny, even though he's like a mafioso. He obviously cares for the birds that live in his pool and stuff like that. He's like, you know, he's an interesting sort of Walter White-esque. Well, I should say Tony Soprano-esque because they definitely started this before Breaking Bad did. You know, you feel sorry for his socialization because of the way his mother treated him, the violence that he was exposed to when he was growing up. He's got faith in this institution that will give him meaning and purpose. But as like the seasons go on, things get more difficult, and you can see that he's like becoming not just like a sort of it needs to be done and bad things happen, but there's this sort of repugnancy that comes from him that's worse than any of his like cronies.
Yes.
There is one scene that is constantly like referred to by fans where, even after all the brutal murders that he's done, where I was like, actually, like, it was so disgusting, this scene, right? And it's when Tony's sister Janice has been given an ultimatum by her husband Bobby, who's probably one of the nicest characters in the show. Even though he's a bad guy as well. Who she has to get her temper under control, or Bobby would divorce her.
Yeah.
And Janice makes like realistic strides to like controlling her temper and controlling her anger. And one time Tony comes round for dinner and sees that she's actually improving and like becoming a better person and calmer, and the way she treats our kids and stuff. So it's all sort of going well. And then because of that, Tony just cannot allow it like, at all.
Yeah.
And immediately brings up her our estranged son, I can't remember his name, Harpo or something.
Ooh.
Now
you're asking.
To send her over the edge, and then she breaks her composure and just tries to attack him.
It is Harpo.
Harpo is a Mark's brother. Oh. I didn't know that. Yeah, so he does that. Janice loses the rag and starts to shout at Tony and tries to attack him. And Tony walks out with this shit-eating grin on his face, and it is like, it's one of the few moments where I felt absolutely disgusted by Tony's behaviour, because what essentially it is, he's seen his sibling do better for themselves.
Yeah.
And because of his perpetual hypocrisy and need to be like a victim, he just can't stand the fact that she's actually just moving on with her life and trying to be a better person. So he does anything he can to just drag her back down to the misery that he goes into. It's so horrible, and it's worse than any of the crimes that he commits throughout the entire show. It's just such a horrible, horrible thing to do. But yeah, that's where it really sort of changes. I think that was in season 5. And
you're asking the wrong person, but it sounds right.
Yeah, and things just get like I'm ranting a wee bit. Things get worse from there. But then he gets shot at the beginning of season 6.
Yes.
By his Uncle Junior, and Tony goes into a sort of dreamlike coma, and takes on the identity of this lawyer or sort of not family man, day trader or something, and he has a seemingly normal life. And when he wakes up, he decides every day is a gift, and wants to smell the roses and tries to make strides to improve himself. He stops cheating on his wife. He shows restraint with his rivals, and it's like, well, maybe he can finally sort of try and become a better person. And then obviously in the latter half of the 6th season, everything just takes a fucking shit turn. He condemns one of his mafiosos for being gay. He makes Bobby, who's one of probably the most innocent character, commit murder for the first time out of spite. Nearly decides to kill Polly over spite as well. And he kills Christopher. They end up getting in a car crash, and Tony blocks his nose so that he chokes on his own blood. And there's 2 reactions that we see to that happening. We see Tony's dream version, where he admits that he's actually relieved that he's did that, because he was a tremendous drag on his emotions, and just admits, yep, I'm so glad that he's dead. And then the real version is, he feels terrible. So it's like he's just become absolutely irredeemable. And when The Sopranos came out, a lot of people wanted to see Tony die at that point. A lot of people were sick of him and wanted to see him die. And we can talk about the sort of final scene a bit later on. But I think that is such a great character arc. It's this sort of idea: is Tony going to make it? Is he going to become a better person, or is he just, you know?
Is he irredeemable?
Yeah, exactly. And we obviously...
It's the opposite of a redemption arc. It's like a bastardization arc.
Yeah, exactly.
He just becomes more and more of a bastard as time goes on.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I struggle with the show a bit, is that it's depressing as shit.
Yes.
It's like that's in the first season, the first couple of seasons, you are rooting for Tony, whose name I completely fucking blanked on for a second then. You are rooting for him. And even towards the point where, oh Christ, are you dying over there?
I'm alright, I'm good. I'm
okay,
I'm
good.
A-okay.
Good stuff. But yeah, even at the points when he does threaten to do violence to his mother and all this sort of stuff, you are still rooting for him. In a very strange way, admittedly, but you are still rooting for him. But yeah, he just becomes more aggressive and more horrible and more deliberately horrible. It becomes obvious with time that, like in the first season, you're sort of led to think that all these horrible things he does are because of the way he was brought up and because of the environment he was brought up in. But then you sort of start to think maybe he's just become deliberately entrenched in these beliefs. Maybe he genuinely believes this is the right way to behave. This is the right way to do things. And you sort of start to think, oh Jesus, this is worse than I ever sort of imagined in a strange way.
Yeah. Corrupted by surroundings, says Dougie. Absolutely. I mean, when you've got a mother like Livy Soprano, you're what's your opinion on Livy Soprano?
I utterly cannot stand her. I found her annoying, and then it was revealed that she tried to orchestrate Tony's death. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, I hate her even more now.
Yeah, she's...
So, whenever she came on the screen, I was just like, oh, for God's sake.
She's just like the picture of like misery, you know?
Deliberate misery, that's the thing. It's someone sort of reveling in their own misery.
Yeah, that's what infects Tony by the end of the show. This sort of like, God, there are just so many scenes where like James Gandolfini, right, who is a fucking fantastic actor, rest in peace, obviously, by the time we get to the end of the series, he's become like, absolutely everything that he hates about himself. Like, yes. I think I wrote some notes. He gambles, even though he hates like that is he treated his old pal who played the Terminator in T2 like shit for like being a is it T100 T1000?
Sorry, I feel like halfway through that you started talking in code. Did Tony have a friend who was the actor that played the T1000?
Yeah. David
Christ.
David Scatini was like an old sort of pal, and he had this gambling addiction, and he ended up owing Tony money, and Tony sort of took over his business and like ran it into the ground so that he could pay him back in season 2, I think. And Tony was like, if you gamble and it's, you know, you lose your money, that's on you. I hate gambling. It's just you're being a degenerate or whatever, right? And that's a pretty horrible view to have, you know, but like...
Oh, God, definitely, yeah.
Tony is very much the strong, silent type, Gary Cooper type person, right, at the start.
It's what he... Yeah.
Yeah. He becomes a gambler by the end of the show. He's as miserable as his mother is. He sees himself as a victim, which he hated throughout the show. He was always talking about people having pity for themselves. And he's just like a coward as well. But it's like James Gandolfini has this amazing way of like conveying emotion through breathing. Like, if you notice that,
I know what you mean.
His breath is its own character. If you get me, it's like... It's like sometimes you can just tell exactly how he's feeling by the way he breathes. It's like you know, he's a sad, pathetic man by the end of the show. But yeah,
it's like how Clint Eastwood does a lot of acting just by sort of squinting his eyes a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of like, oh, hey up, he's done a lot in the last 2 or 3 seconds.
Exactly. So I have some questions for you, Lewis.
Yeah, hit it.
Ask the first one about favourite character. Who is your least favourite character and why?
Livia Soprano, just because, like, started out annoying, became deeply unpleasant to watch.
Yeah.
And then by the time that she died, I was just thought, well, thank heavens for that.
Yeah.
In a really horrible way. I was sick of seeing her on the show.
Yeah.
I'm sure that actor is lovely in real life, but I just was sick of seeing them.
Well,
it's the truth.
The sad thing is that they passed away during filming.
I feel really bad.
And if you notice, there's really bad CGI at the start of season. I can't remember what season it was, but there's really bad CGI, and that's why Tony's mother dies, because they, rather than try to continue it through a recast or whatever other way, they just sort of write her out. Which is interesting because the show is like, the passage of time isn't like 2 years as it is in Breaking Bad. They don't mess with the passage of time. Things happen, and you just have to deal with that. It's like Tony gets older, everyone gets older. You know, it's like it's more realistic, if you get me.
Yeah.
But my favourite has got to be Ralph Cifaretto, who has the bowl cut, and
Ralph Cifaretto with the bowl cut.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I'm quickly running to the cast list whenever you mention somebody. Ralph, what'd you say?
Cifaretto.
This is a Ralph Cifaretto. Here we go. Oh Christ! Well, that's just not at all a picture of a human being. It's the picture of the Yeah, I know this guy. Yep.
Yeah. Who,
it took me a second, but I figured out who he is. Yep.
Who killed his lover Tracy by beating her to death when he found out that she was pregnant. Just an absolutely despicable human being. There's a lot of clues about him sort of being represented as the devil in the show.
Oh, okay.
There's especially in Tony's dream sequences and stuff, he's there, but is bald, and there's a lot of visual imagery that suggests that he could be the show's devil. There's a scene where he's clipping his toenails, and Sympathy for the Devil is in the background playing. Okay. And his toenail goes into Janice's eye, and he's like, "You catch some shrapnel," like that. Yeah, so he's definitely my least favourite character of everyone. But what about you, Lewis? I've ranted for fucking ages. Get some.
I've only got the one rant. It's a rant that I don't feel passionately about it, but it makes me smile how every Italian American celebrity that they bring up in the show, they talk about them as though they're an old family friend.
Yeah.
Junior is the one that does it the most. Apparently there's a painting of Frank Sinatra somewhere in this world, like a mural of Frank Sinatra. Yeah. And in an offhand comment, him and I think it's Junior and it might be Christopher, or it might be Tony, are talking about this mural of Frank Sinatra, and they're talking about him, referring to him as Frankie, or what about your boy Frankie, or this old guy Frankie, or whatever, and they're referring to him in this way, which is always utterly bizarre. And the other one that really got me was Tony and Junior were sat watching. I forget whose baseball game it was, but they were sat watching a baseball game, presumably Anthony Jr. Yeah. And I think Junior said to Tony something like, "You could have gone all the way, you could have been like a professional baseballer." And Tony goes, "Oh no, I couldn't. I was never that good." And he goes, "Oh, you had a swing like Joe D." And it's just in this really offhand way of "Oh yeah, my old friend Joe DiMaggio, who I'm not sure when Joe DiMaggio died, but I think it was a long time before the 90s." So I don't know. It really tickles me how every Italian American celebrity that gets brought up is instantly recognizable to them. And they're like, "Oh yes, that's a very famous cultural touchstone." Yeah. It makes me smile in a funny way. I really like it.
No, it is quite funny. It's interesting how when they talk about I think there was something about AJ was at school and he came back and he's like, "What'd you learn at school today?" And AJ's like, "Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone." And he's like,
"Oh God."
Yeah. And Tony loses his shit and it's like, "Alexander Graham Bell didn't invent nothing. It was what who was the other guy?"
No idea.
Who was it? I can't remember his name, but Tony.
It was an Italian American guy. Yeah.
Who invented?
Think invents the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell.
Antonio
Mucci.
Mucci, yeah. He's like, Antonio Mucci invented the telephone. He got cheated. He got rubbed out. He's like, he just...
Well, and then, of course, that sort of... I mean, to say it comes full circle is a bit weird, but yeah, it does kind of come full circle in a really strange way.
Yeah.
Because it comes back around and they go to Italy and they're just so out of touch there as well.
They're just seen as like...
their own sort of self-secluded society in New Jersey where they are deliberately not American, they're deliberately not Italian, they're deliberately different to everybody else, and they've sort of othered themselves.
Yeah.
I think it says something interesting about the sort of the organisation they run and who they think they are and all these sort of things. It's like, in order for their business to be self-sustaining, they need to isolate themselves in a strange way.
Yeah. I mean, the Italians there just see them as like... I mean, there's a sort of classism sort of thing, but they see them as like snobbish... not snobbish, boorish sort of brutes that have no culture or whatever. Like, Paulie's sitting there and he's like, "Where's the gravy?" And they're like, "What?" Like they have no idea. Tomato sauce.
He says, "Where's the waiter? He does not know what you mean. It's gonna be gravy. You mean grapes, like wine?" He was, "No, the tomato sauce." Oh, I love that. And then there's that sort of offhand. Because then the guy that Paulie's sitting across from, who does talk Italian, explains to the waiter, bring him some spaghetti with some tomato sauce on it. Yeah. And then the two Italian guys that are sat opposite Paulie talk to each other and have a bit of a joke and say, "Oh, and you thought the Germans were classless morons or whatever." Yeah. And they like sort of joke to themselves, and Paulie doesn't speak Italian, and he sort of looks across at them and goes, "Oh, yeah," as he's just got this fork full of pasta halfway through his mouth. I don't know. It's
he just does that. Like that, just that Steve Ronsley laugh. And it's...
I mean, it's accurate.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting how there's like a female boss in Italy as well. And it's like Tony's like, "It would never happen back in the States." And it seems like Tony has more in common, at least business-wise, with, you know, this female boss that would just never be allowed. And it's interesting how Tony can sort of... While he is a repugnant piece of shit, he can empathise more than any of his other counterparts, if you get what I mean. You know, he's not an idiot in the same way. He's like, he can talk to Melfi about like really sort of deep stuff like existentialism and like nihilism and stuff like that. When Anthony's like not believing in God and stuff, it's like he's got the capacity to be an empathetic person. It's just that he chooses to be
cruel and horrible,
a better piece of shit. Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting how that works. I would have this is the most like inconsistent thing about The Sopranos. I think a few like people who used to be in the mafia have said this, that if any sort of capo or boss found out that Tony was going to therapy, his therapist would have been killed, and Tony would have been killed as well. For the fear of like revealing secrets and stuff. Like, there'd just be no way that would be allowed. The both of them were. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that kind of what Tony's afraid of, though? Where I mean, the only time he reveals that he's going to therapy is when he can control the outcome and he knows he won't be killed.
Yeah, true.
But that's something he's afraid of, because he says to Melfi, sort of, if they knew I was seeing you, you would be killed, I would be killed. So yeah.
I suppose that's why he's different, because like, that's why it poses the question: can he be cured of his sort of, you know, hatefulness because he takes the steps to go and speak to someone about his panic attacks? But yeah, Tony's...
Well, I suppose it's Here we go. This is going to be good. I suppose it's not about trying to cure him of his horrific personality. I suppose the problem is like if say you were someone who's sort of a recovering alcoholic, you might not go into a pub. You might not go into a bar. You might avoid the beer aisle at Tesco or whatever. But Tony, in this theoretical metaphor, he deliberately walks down the beer aisle every single day because that's what he has to do to go to work and stuff. And so I suppose what you're saying is, would he move to Alaska and completely leave his life behind, depart from everything, or could he walk through the beer and the wine aisle with sort of blinkered glasses on and just be looking at the floor and the sort of room in front of him and not be looking at what's on the shelves? I don't know, because it's not a personality thing. In theory, it's a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? A nature change. The things around him need to change fundamentally for him to have a chance at sort of adapting himself in a neutral environment.
Yeah.
Because the moral choices Tony faces don't exist in a vacuum. He's making those moral choices, and he's kind of pushed into all those moral choices when he has to make them.
Yeah.
It's all well and good to say, like this is exactly what the point of The Good Place is in a strange roundabout way. Is like you're making moral choices, but your moral choices are influenced by what moral choices you are capable of making.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's all well and good for me to say, oh yeah, I will only make ethical choices forever. But I can't afford, for example, if it was the cheapest option for me to get my power from a company that used a horrific amount of fossil fuels and coal to generate power, I would have to go with that because I can't afford to make the ethical decision of using something with cleaner energy. So it is about a nature change. It is Tony... I hate using the word curable with regards to mental health, but is Tony... could we modify Tony's behaviour while maintaining the self in a situation where Tony isn't in that environment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we probably could. But I think the problem is that Tony is deliberately forcing himself back into that environment every single day. So is it more about the nature of the place he's in? Because, like I say, his choices, that his character is informed by the place he is. It doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree.
See, that was good.
That was very good. Why do you think that... I know you probably don't remember him, but why do you think that Tony killed...
This is like Star Wars all over again. What do you think about this obscure character? What? Who?
Well, why do you think Tony killed Ralph?
Who?
Ralph
barely even...
Cifaretto.
Weren't we just now talking about Ralph Cifaretto?
Yeah, my least favourite character.
Yes, we were.
Do you remember how he was killed?
I don't know, but I imagine it was something deeply horrific.
Right, I'll ask another question. Why do you think Tony killed Christopher?
I'm not sure. On a strange level, I got the vibe that Tony... Sorry, I'm looking at the IMDb page. It was massively distracting. I got the strange vibe that Tony killed Christopher because... I don't know. I was watching it and it didn't occur to me to think of a reason. I was watching it and I just thought, okay, yeah, Tony's killed Christopher. Do you know what I mean?
Do you want to know the reason?
Yeah, go on then.
Because Heidi's car was a made man and Christopher's nose wasn't. That's why.
What? What? Heidi's car, as in the thing he drove around?
No. So, do you remember the death scene?
Oh, Jesus.
You don't remember it?
Barely.
Okay, so Tony and Chris are driving, right? And, like,
right.
The episode is called Kennedy and Heidi, or Heidi and Kennedy. And
okay.
They almost crash into this car with Heidi in the driver's seat and Kennedy in the passenger seat, these two teenage girls. And they go off the road, and Tony is lying there. He's all right, and Chris is bleeding. And Tony obviously grabs his nose like that and suffocates him. And the reason I said Heidi's car is a made man, because that's like the excuse that the mafiosos give. It's like, he was a made man. That guy wasn't. It's like, that's if you're a big fan of the show, that's the sort of memes that people engage in. But...
Oh, I see. Okay. I am a fan of the show. I just also appear to have some kind of bizarre memory loss about these key things that happened in the show.
Yeah. So fair enough. Well, I'll ask the biggest question of the entire night, and if you don't have a theory about this, I'm going to kill you. Okay?
Okay.
What do you think about the ending of the show?
What happened to the ending? I don't know, Danny.
You fucking... No,
of course I know. Of course I've watched the ending, bloody hell.
Certain people see him. He's a dead man.
No, it's... Okay. My immediate thought upon watching the ending was, well, then Tony must have died.
Yes.
Because it's like in a book that doesn't exist. In The Fault in Our Stars, there's a book they talk about where the book ends mid-sentence. And the idea is that the character that was narrating this fictional book just died.
Yeah.
They had cancer and they just died, so the book just stopped. So that was my immediate response upon watching the end of The Sopranos. However, then, naturally, because we live in a world where all of the information in the world is right at my fingertips, I looked at like different theories about the end of The Sopranos and what people think and stuff. And I forget who said this. I think it was David Chase said something like, "It doesn't really matter. Because whether he died then, it doesn't matter, because he would have died the next time he went to a diner for a meal with his family."
Exactly.
So it's kind of not really very important whether he died then or not, because he was always going to die at some point. He's always going to be looking over his shoulder and all this sort of stuff. The one thing I didn't get... Sorry, have you got a theory about the final scene?
Oh yeah, he absolutely died in that diner. The way that they filmed it, I think multiple people came into the restaurant, and every time you would get a shot of Tony looking up, and then a POV shot of the person coming in, so on and so forth. Meadow comes in at the end, and we go on Tony, and then the POV shot is blackness, because Tony's been shot by the guy who went into the toilet. And it harkens back to The Godfather, when Michael Corleone goes into the toilet and gets the gun out of the cistern. There's a lot more theories about like Bobby one time saying, "I bet you don't even hear it when it happens" and stuff, and like it's absolutely set up very nicely. At the beginning of the episode, Tony's like lying as if he's like in a coffin. But more than that, there's a great reviewer by the name of Macabre Storytelling, who has a theory about it and says that when Tony goes to visit his Uncle Junior for the last time, he realises that he has to change his ways. And we see that with how warm he is with Carmela. He's a bit warmer. He grabs Anthony Jr.'s hand, like as if he's good, pleased to see him and all that. And he was so close to learning his lesson and maybe becoming a good person, and is obviously killed before he can realise that.
I like that ending. I mean, I don't like it, but but I admire the storytelling aspect of it. That certainly makes sense to me, and I do like it in a funny way.
Yeah.
There was never any doubt in my mind that he didn't die in the diner. The one thing I don't quite get about the ending is, why was it relevant that Meadow was having such a hard time parking the car? I didn't quite get it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't quite understand that. Is that relevant in some way?
I think it was building tension. I remember when I was watching it, I was fucking shitting myself. Because we're seeing... everyone thinks Tony's going to get shot here or something really bad's going to happen. This is the last ever episode. And we've got Meadow trying to park, and it's like, oh shit, is there someone in the car with her? Is the car going to explode? Is is she going to die? We have no idea, and it just builds tension. And I think that's entirely what it was. There might be some deeper meaning that I couldn't think about. But yeah, I think you know who killed Tony as well, don't you? Who organised it?
No.
It was Paulie and Patsy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought you were going to say, because of what you were saying about what's his face being the in-universe version of the devil. I thought you were going to say, oh yeah, and of course the metaphorical meaning of the person that orchestrated his death is it's literally the devil.
Yeah.
The devil literally orchestrated his death.
I mean, there is supernatural stuff in The Sopranos if you look closely. There's the time that you see Big Pussy in the mirror. There's a scene with I think Silvio, when a wine glass moves on its own and stuff. So there is supernatural stuff in it.
Which I think enhances it in a strange way, because the thing that makes The Sopranos good is that it's a human experience of a thing that is not a human experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Of this theoretical mob life. It's a human experience of that. And a human experience is enhanced by you, I don't want to say seeing ghosts, but by you sort of, seeing ghosts, I suppose. That's what enhances a human experience, is the vibe that you get from something. And if you walk into a room and you're like, oh, it's cold and it's dark and I think there might be a presence in the room, that enhances the human experience of the experience.
Yeah.
I know I've said the word experience too many times now, but that's what makes The Sopranos good, is that it's enhanced by its own enhancement.
Yeah. I mean, the theory about Paulie and Patsy is that Patsy is raging that Tony killed his brother, Philly. And there's a sort of a lot of imagery with the cat that's in the sort of meat house where they are, and the cat is like staring at the portrait of Christopher after he dies, and Tony's like, there's probably a rat in the wall or something, and then at the end of that, the cat sort of looks at Polly, marking him as the rat, and then that's the last time we see him. So that's the sort of theories that people have about it. But it is a very human thing, and I like that whether it be God or whether it be whatever sort of thing, there is a judgment on these characters that isn't just they just do things and we watch it. There is a sort of we recognise that these people are pieces of shit that need to be sort of judged for what they do rather than just you watch stuff and it happens. But yeah.
So how do you feel in that sense about Breaking Bad? In the sense of, because in my feelings anyway, Breaking Bad was always very, you watch stuff and it happens. Do you feel the character should have been judged more in Breaking Bad, or did I watch it wrong?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I think in terms of like an ending, The Sopranos has the superior ending, because Tony, I think writers in general have a sort of fear of like not ending it amazingly, rather than just ending it when the story is supposed to come to an end, you know?
Yeah.
Walter didn't get judged as much as he should have, because he won at the end of Breaking Bad. He got everything that he wanted. He took care of his family, he killed his enemies, he freed Jesse, and he got to die in like a meth lab, you know? I mean, on the face of that, if you haven't watched the show, it would seem like so far-fetched. Like, it's like... And there's a theory by a comedian named Norm Macdonald who's passed away recently.
Yes, very sadly.
That didn't happen, and it was a sort of fever dream that Walt had while he was in the car before he left at the final episode.
Right.
And I think that would have been a better sort of ending for the show, because it would mean that Walt has to suffer the consequences of his actions.
It would have been good to see Walt go to trial in a strange way.
Yeah.
That would have been quite nice to see him sort of literally be put on the stand for it.
Exactly. I mean, because the ethos of the show was to make Mr. Chips turn into Scarface, and they did that, but you can't then give Scarface a victory if it's a warning about how a seemingly okay person becomes a bad person, you know? Whereas the...
Yeah, I mean, I... Sorry, go on.
No, on you go.
Because I took the ending a bit of a different way, I think. Because it was... this is something I don't like in films, but... the thing that films do where they tell the story of two characters doing something or whatever, and it starts when they first come up with the idea, and it ends when the idea is executed.
Yeah.
And it's... A good example, I suppose, is Ocean's 11. It's the start of the film is Danny coming up with the idea of, I will do a heist.
Yeah.
And then the end of the film is, I've done the heist, that's the end.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a very simple way to tell a story, but if you take it in a bit more of an abstract way, it can be a bit more complex, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's the only example... I'm going to use Breaking Bad as the example, as also a metaphor, and we're going to have a struggle, but we're going to do it.
Okay.
It sort of starts off with Walter. Up until that point, I think he's just some bloke. And then I think you can see him start to crack, and the kernel of him needing to build an empire and do something with his life.
Yeah.
You can see that start to form right at the start. And then you see the empire rise and you see it fall. And the final scene of Breaking Bad is no one will make that meth again. Yeah. No one will be Heisenberg again. That's the end of the empire. Because I sort of viewed it as a story about the empire rather than a story about the man. I know that I'm wrong, because it is a story about the man.
Yeah.
But that's how I sort of viewed that ending relative to Walter White as a bloke.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. And a lot of people have said that season 4 should have been where they finished it. Like, even though some plot points weren't addressed, because there are plot points in The Sopranos that are just not addressed at all. You know, like Silvio's in the hospital, and you know, whoever's organising a hit on Tony, like, do you not think Carmela would want, you know, to make sure she found out who it was, whether she's safe, what's happening with Anthony Jr., who basically is his father by the end of the show, who gets enjoyment out of other people's pain. Meadow, who was like the sort of beacon of light in the show, is going to become a white collar criminal to defend other mobsters by the end of it. You know, it's interesting. But in season 4 of Breaking Bad, Walter becomes that bad person. He becomes Scarface, you know. You see that final shot of confirming that he poisoned Brock and that he killed Gus Fring. That would have been... The show's ethos would have been completed there. It's like you've made a seemingly nice man into an absolute monster, you know. But I do like season 5. I'm not saying we shouldn't have had season 5. Ozymandias is the best episode of television ever made. You know, so it's give and take.
Let me quickly Google it, and then I'll confirm or deny.
Yeah, when Hank dies.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's when the story's over, it's over. You don't need to just keep going because you feel like, oh, what happened to Mike, or you know, what's happening with the cameras. You know, I guess it's up to the right. But yeah, I think I might be out of notes.
I am out of notes. Yeah. On our 90th episode.
On our 90th fucking episode.
I know. Yeah.
Do you have a closing statement?
I do. This was very depressing. I hope that for the 100th episode, we pick a long-form show that's less depressing.
Yes, absolutely. He still doesn't have the makings of a varsity athlete. That's...
What?
Do you not remember that quote?
I remember the quote. I don't remember what bit of The Sopranos it's from.
It's from Junior, who keeps repeating it because he keeps forgetting. And Tony's like losing his shit. And Tony's like, I don't want anyone to say that ever again. And because he's obviously like got dementia, Junior just keeps saying it. And Tony's like, God fucking damn it! He's just losing his Any video of a Sopranos clip, you will see people in the comments section saying he never had the makings of a varsity athlete. But yeah, so that was your Sopranos.
That was The Sopranos.
It was. Should we do some horrible capitalist shilling, Lewis?
Yes, let's do some horrible capitalist shilling.
Yeah. We all have Linktrees. Lewis's Linktree is linktr.ee/Lewis_Brindley. Mine's is /O'Hiram, and the podcast is /Shouting Into the Void. There you will find our socials, our Instagram, our YouTube, our Facebook. So go, have a look, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, and stick around for more awesome content.
Yeah, I enjoyed that voice. That was nice and terrifying. I won't be sleeping tonight.
Quite right. We also have a PayPal donate button. So anything you can spare, anything at all, would be greatly appreciated. And we also have Patreon. And we want to take the opportunity, as we do every single week, to thank our wonderful, wonderful patrons. We have some patrons in the Discord right now. And we just want to thank you guys for sticking around, sticking with us.
Yep.
Chloe.
Thank you.
Darius.
Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you.
Aditya.
Thank you.
Natalie.
Thank you.
And Doogie.
Thank you, one and all. You really do make the show possible. And I've been trying to look away from my webcam for this entire thing because I knew it would be weird. But now I'm looking directly into it. Thank you very much for making the show possible and allowing us to get to 90 episodes, which is utterly absurd when you really take a step back and think about it.
Jesus.
But it does mean the world that we're allowed to make this show. Not allowed, that you allow us to make this show. And it really does mean the world that you support us. And we have this very concrete gesture of your support. And it really does mean the world. So thank you.
Yes.
If you would like to join their esteemed ranks, you can go to shoutingintothevoid.com. No, hang on. Patreon.com/shoutingintothevoid, and you could check out the different tiers and ranks and all the things we've got going on. So go and take a cheeky look and have a look and treat yourself. Why not?
Absolutely. We also have merch on Teespring and Redbubble. We sell tote bags, we sell jumpers, we sell stickers, we sell t-shirts, all sorts of shit. Get yourself something nice because Christmas will be here before you know it. And you'll be disappointed if you don't get in. So And last but certainly not least, we are partnered with an amazing company called Number 12 Crochet Avenue, and Lewis is going to say some wonderful things about them, all of which are true.
Indeed I am. Number 12 Crochet Avenue is a wonderful company run by my wonderful wife in which they crochet, and they're very, very good at it. And if you would like to keep up to date with all the wonderful things going on in the world of crochet and some beautifully aesthetically pleasing content, then you can go to Number 12 Crochet Avenue on Instagram and give it a cheeky like, a follow, all those things, and you can check out what's going on over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
that was 90 episodes. Isn't that crazy?
90 episodes. Do you remember when we started this shit, Lewis?
I do. I remember sitting in a hotel room for hours talking about
Ex Machina.
What was it we were talking about? Ex Machina. That was it. Good lord.
Wow.
That's quite something.
Well, here's to 90 more.
Yep.
Thanks so much, folks. And we have one last thing to do before we go, and it's to announce next week's episode. This is the format that we're going to be keeping. But yeah, if you don't...
Have you seen what Darius has just put in the chat?
What did he put?
I didn't think you'd last this long.
Fuck's sake, Darius. What?
Thanks, Darius.
Listen, you pay for this. Dougie said cruel. Interesting you say that, Dougie, because...
Ooh.
We're doing Cruella.
Hey, there we go.
The Disney one.
With Emma Stone and Emma Thompson.
Yes, two Emmas.
I'm sure that won't get confusing when we're talking about
No.
saying who with Emma, and then we'll get nice and confused straight away.
Both Emmas.
Both Emmas. The only two Emmas in Hollywood.
Absolutely. Emma, is it Emma Watson?
Oh yeah,
Emma Watson's sitting there raging. But yeah,
Emma Watson's in the corner in Cruella. She's more like a party goer or something. She's in the background.
Yeah,
they're all three of them are contractually obliged that they have to be in the same films always.
Always.
But
yeah. So, thank you, folks, and tune in next week for Cruella. And we will see you, hear you, smell you. Give you some gabagool next time.
Gabagool. I don't think I will give you gabagool. I don't even know where I would go about getting gabagool. In theory, if I had some, I would offer it to you.
I've got a guy.
I do not.
I've got a guy.
Tony Soprano is your guy.
I got a guy.
Yeah.
You never had the makings of a varsity. Right, we're gone. Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.